9 months ago, Sega released Sonic Frontiers, the first open zone Sonic game, with new gameplay mechanics and a deep, surprisingly dark story from famed Sonic comic writer Ian Flynn. The hype was real, and depending on what you were hyped for, you were either thrilled with the game or utterly disappointed. Flynn's story of a technologically advanced ancient civilization that created the Chaos Emeralds fleshed out Sonic lore while simultaneously tying nearly every single mainline game into one universe. That's right, getting sucked into storybooks to fight knights and genies? Canon. The Weirhog? Canon. Your custom character in Sonic Forces? Canon. But if you wanted, a game that ran well with reliable game mechanics, sorry. On top of the performance issues, the end of the game was barely finished. The climactic final boss was a Ikaruga clone. This was pretty disappointing. But then, Sonic Team announced multiple free DLC updates to the game, including Update 3, The Final Horizon. This update would add more playable characters and additional story. Could this be what this clearly rushed game needs to seal the deal? Does the Final Horizon update fix what was wrong with Sonic Frontiers? Hey everybody, I'm Binkle Monkey, and I beat the Final Horizons update. Ow! I shared my thoughts on Sonic Frontiers in a review shortly after it came out, and I left it with a very hopeful outlook for what this DLC and the future of this new style of Sonic games could bring. What I didn't expect was the Dark Souls of Sonic games. Seriously, who had that on their bingo cards? No one. That's who. And I don't use the term Dark Souls lightly. You'll see. I'm going to be getting into all of the story and missions in the Final Horizon update, so heavy spoiler warning for this entire video. The Final Horizon takes place on Ornos Island, the last island of the regular game. It kind of acts like a Marvel What If episode, where in an alternate universe, the gang figures out a way to defeat the big baddie without sending Amy, Knuckles, and Tails back into cyberspace. Instead, those three are tasked with finding the Chaos Emeralds, while Sonic works on gaining a new power to defeat the End. The End. Kind of a lame name for a final boss, right? Looks more like a Gerald to me. Anyway, they need those darn Chaos Emeralds, and they gotta find them in an overly convoluted, long-winded way. Such is tradition. The plot kinda takes a back seat during this section, but is still showcasing the personalities of the Gang of Three. Tails figures out how to unlock the emeralds from the ancient technology using his big techie nerd brain. Amy's big heart is on display. She goes out of her way to help those cute little rock babies, the Coco. And Knuckles smash. God, I love Knuckles. The character beats are great and all, but we all know the hype was really about getting to play as Sonic's amigos in the open zone. And I'm happy to report, the update does a pretty good job of bringing those three's movesets to life. You start off as Amy, and the first thing I noticed was she couldn't attack, like at all, but she could triple jump and float. Eventually I found her skill tree and realized it was something I had to unlock with skill points. This update doesn't hold your hand with nearly as many helpful hint text boxes as the base game did. You're expected to just figure shit out. But it didn't take long before I was busting down walls with Amy's fortune cards. Side note, when did Amy become a fortune card person? Is that a thing from the comics? I was looking forward to smacking people with that big old hammer, but cards are cool too, I guess. All the new characters get these color-coordinated obstacle course puzzles, and hers revolve around being floaty and hovery, which is a nice change of pace from Sonic's speed-based gameplay. Actually, everyone's style is different enough to keep things interesting. Knuckles climbs and glides around like you'd expect from his past appearances, and other than his mid-air turning while falling being absolutely abysmal, I really enjoy his gameplay. I don't recommend doing what I did and maxing out his speed though. A lot of his puzzles are like playing Operation. Don't touch the sides. Fortunately, the infinite jump glitch is back from Sonic Boom, so falling down after touching the sides isn't that big of a deal. May that be the only part of Sonic Boom that's canon. Please. After leveling him up, Tails is utterly broken. The Cyclone makes his triumphant playable return from Sonic Adventure 2, and Tails can fly anywhere while boosting. I exploited the shit out of that. Why do an entire obstacle course puzzle when you can just fly to the prize at the end? That's not broken, that's a feature. Also, a lot of his puzzles just involve Tails butt propellering around and throwing wrenches. A lot of wrenches.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
What?
Despite how fun having some new gameplay styles to try out was, I still had a few complaints. First, there is no warning when you're on the last task for a character before the game switches you to the next character, and there is no swapping back until much later. This doesn't hurt your progression or anything, it just frustrated the completionist part of my brain. Second, each character gets their own theme while running around the overworld, and they're thankfully not nearly as dour sounding as the game's original score. But why did they have to give them lyrics? Or more so, why are the loops of the same 4 bars of lyrics so short? You hear the same lines about trusting your cards giving you a new future over and over again. An earlier update to the game added a jukebox mode so you could listen to classic Sonic jams instead of the morose music of the overworld. But not for this update, you're stuck hearing how Knuckles has to take it slow and let his blood flow. At least getting all the skills and upgrades has been streamlined from the base game, especially since you don't get that much time with these 3, and they all start out at level 1. Each character has these color-coordinated Cocos all over the map that give them a butt-ton of skill points. And collecting Coco and fruit for attack, defense, speed, and ring capacity upgrades has never been easier. Every few nights, a starfall will occur, and instead of bringing up that annoying slot machine thing like the base game, you just collect Coco and fruit. But then the item counter starts having a rave and the numbers just start to soar. It's very easy to end up with 5,000 plus Coco and hundreds of fruit very quickly. But even after all those stat boosts, none of the newcomers feel overpowered. Their skill trees may have a lot of abilities, but these 3 don't have any fighting combos to learn. Facing off with the returning mini-bosses inhabiting the overworld is really difficult, not just because of the lack of combos, but the mini-bosses are all sorts of coked up. They hit harder, move faster, and are just an absolute terror compared to their original version counterparts. These 3 just don't stand a chance against these behemoths. Now, I'm not saying it's not doable, but just try and fight Caterpillar with Tails. It's gonna be a bad time. It just adds to the game making Sonic look like a total badass by comparison. I mean, after 3 different Smash Bros appearances, Sonic's got all the moves to kick anyone's ass. But what happens when that ass kicks back? It's finally Sonic time, and that means it's difficulty spike time. You've got a few options of things to do while playing as the Blue Blur. They didn't make any of those color-coded obstacle courses for him. His new obstacle courses are the 4 trial towers he has to climb. But to get those open, you need Lookout Coco. I found enough just wandering around with Amy, Knuckles, and Tails. Back when I found them though, I had no idea what these things did, just that they yelled something crazy when you got one. But if you didn't find enough Lookout Coco, you can go into the 9 new Cyberspace levels to earn yourself some more. These are pretty fun little challenges. They've added some new gimmicks like racing this creepy Shadow Tails and outrunning a bomb that's stuck to you. And there's one where it's just a metric shit ton of white cars? Is this a brand deal? It should have been a brand deal. Earning a reward from Cyberspace is a lot more difficult now. It usually entails collecting 5 of something that's a lot closer together but still more difficult to collect than the red coins were. Each level also has an assortment of little animal buddies to find, but I literally only ever found 1 my entire time playing. To be honest, since I didn't need those Lookout Coco, I just didn't spend very much time in the Cyberspace levels. I felt the need to try them all, but that was about it. They also didn't give us any new level themes, which isn't surprising, but it's still a little disappointing. You'll have Green Hill Zone, and you will like it. But climbing the trial towers is really the meat of Sonic's portion of the update. This is nothing new to anyone who's beat Sonic Frontiers before. There was a whole island dedicated to this business. But these ones are ridiculously difficult. It is so easy to slip and fall down a portion or the entire tower. The new design philosophy this time was blocks, but at weird angles. And as silly as it sounds, these blocks are very worthy adversaries. Landing on these can suck. Every tower is a true test of your platforming skills, reflexes, and patience. The second one drove me nuts because there were these destructible walls you homing attacked across certain areas, but if you fell down below that after destroying them, they were just gone, making the climb back up somewhere between miserable and impossible. This was solved by reloading my save, but still, not ideal design. After much trial and error, Sonic reaches the top, but unlike the last time he had to climb a bunch of towers, the challenge doesn't end at the top. Oh no, it's where Sonic meets the spirits of the pilots of the Titans he blew up, and they're none too happy with him. They each challenge Sonic to a trial, and these flat out suck. Each one is a battle against enemies that used to just wander the overworld, and you'd beat the crap out of them for fun. This time, They too are coked out of their minds. Like, look how insanely fast these guys are.
Deja vu!
If that wasn't enough, all your ability levels have been capped at level 1. Gee, thanks game. Really glad I did all that grinding earlier. These trials challenge you to play the game in ways you may not have before, or at least that's how it felt to me. Whether it was relying solely on counterattacks to do damage, or a ridiculously specific attack and parry rhythm. This is very different from how I went at the game originally. Fortunately, I wasn't alone in struggling with these challenges, and this game's amazing community was on Reddit helping each other out, not to mention commiserating about how friggin' hard this update is. I don't think I would have found the rhythm to beat the Snakes trial without you all. 4 towers, 4 trials, and we're back for round 2 of Amy, Knuckles, and Tails time. This section of Chaos Emerald hunting was much the same as the first, but it went a lot faster. It definitely had its own frustrations though, mostly because I couldn't help myself. I needed to map out the entire island. Damn these stupid markers on the map, I needed them gone! And of course, I left all the frustrating stuff for last. I spent an exorbitant amount of time on this one map challenge in particular with Tails because I was sure he was the character who could do it. But he was actually the worst possible character for the job. He's got no homing attack, and that's all that challenge needed. Live and learn, I guess. It was around this part of my playthrough that all my little problems with the game really started to get to me. I'm not much of a graphics snob, but the pop-in is still really bad. Like, this is pretty excessive, even to me, and I wish it didn't rain every 5 minutes. Seriously, it's a beautiful setting, but it can't help but turn gray and miserable, cause I'm not sure why. Who wants this? As far as gameplay goes, it bothered me that getting certain skills for characters actually made them worse. Like if you get the special ability for Amy's boost, where she uses her fortune cards as a mono wheel thingy, she's a lot worse at getting up rocky and weird terrains. You lose a lot of maneuverability when you're at full rings. I also didn't love how the game just dumps all sorts of lore and awkward unanimated conversations you can have on the map. And some of them.
Everything we've seen is nothing more than phenomena that put to death egg robot and all of the other machines I've brought. I assure you, there's no such thing as
He used a miniature vehicle instead.
Well, that's a lot of answers to questions I never had. Eventually you collect the next 3 Chaos Emeralds, and everyone is suffering from the cyber corruption that was kicking Sonic's ass previously. But he's feeling great, and is ready to take on one final tower trial. And this one is brutal. Meet King Coco, the biggest asshole in all of Sonic Frontiers. He wants you to prove yourself worthy of his training that will teach you to weaponize the cyber power, which totally sounds like something my boomer parents would say about the internets. His challenge is to defeat the first 3 Titans, Giganto, Wyvern, and Knight, with all of your stats at level 1 and 400 rings for all 3 of them. That doesn't sound that terrible until you realize your rings deplete whenever you're supersonic. That divides out to about 133 rings per Titan. You have to know these fights inside and out, what the best attacks are, when to use a quick Psyloop to create an opening to spam set attacks, and when to parry. When to parry. The last stipulation of this fight is what takes it from an 8 to an 11. The parry, which used to work whenever you were holding down both bumper buttons, is now perfect parry and requires actual timing and precision. Honestly, I want to consider this an improvement. This is how other games require you to actually earn the advantage a parry creates. This is how it should have always been. But the window for parrying is so precise that it often feels like pure luck if you hit it. Plus, you have to learn the actual timing for parrying for the first time here in super hard mode. Unless you turn on easy mode. The only difference anyone's found between easy mode and hard or extreme mode is how tight the parry window is. So if you're like me and want to destroy your monitor after hours of failing up and down, easy mode it, because even with that larger parry window, it's still one hell of a challenge. After gaining the power of the Cybers, it's time to see how the update retcons the endgame. You fight the last Titan, Supreme, unchanged from the base game, but then our old friend Gerald shows up and shoves a hose in the back of Supreme's head, turning it into his vessel to destroy the world and Sonic. Y'all, this fight is better than the original, but it's still not very good. Hear me out. I feel a lot of final fights get dunked on for being different from the rest of the game, or for a major difficulty spike. That isn't the problem with Supreme Gerald. It's that it does nothing to tell you what to do. I don't normally do this, but I'm going to shoot from the hip with my description here. So the first thing you gotta do really is break that cord, but how you do it is super unclear. Like, you can't target it, they won't let you hit it. What you have to do is punch Supreme in the face and then sidestep, and then you can attack the cord. But it's just so... nothing says that. It doesn't show you how to do that ever. Nothing set me up to understand that little trick. And eventually you get a cutscene where Sonic goes like super Sonic, but that just gives him perfect parrying to counter some moves that are hitting you and like depleting your rings horrifically. But that's about all that is. Like, that's just like a little gimmick. It does nothing for the real fight. And it acts like it's a brand new thing, but we just spent the entirety of that last trial dealing with that exact thing. So then you beat the crap out of Supreme and he's out of health. You got a quick side loop the gun hole that's in the back behind him. Like, you might be lucky and see the little cursor go over it, but otherwise, I don't know how I was supposed to know to do that. I was like, the first time I was just punching it because that's what we do here. We punch things. But no, you gotta use the quick side loop ability, and then that makes the gun come out. And then you gotta quick side loop the gun as well. And then Eggman takes the gun. Then the rest of it is just beating him up, really. Like, and then going to specific places that it does not tell you to go. You just have to figure it out. It's so opaque with what it wants you to do. It's so unclear. It feels like an old NES game, like one of those ones that you just don't know what the hell you're doing in. But that's the fight. That's all it is it's either completely unclear on what you need to do or just punching. I don't know, y'all. I don't think this is a good fight. So Eggman pisses on the moon and Sonic shoots a hole through Gerald, destroying it once and for all. Sonic used all of his power up, of course, and is now unconscious floating in space. We cut back to Amy, Knuckles, and Tails, where they're watching Sonic plummet out of the sky. Wild DLC, y'all. 10 out of 10. Nah, Sonic survives what Shadow couldn't in Sonic Adventure 2, and their ending plays out exactly the same as the base game. The big change here is Eggman's ending, where he and his daughter Sage get to go back home together this time. That's right, we did that whole DLC just so Eggman could have a happy ending.
You did well, Sage. It's time to head home, dear daughter.
Okay, I like that. That feels nice. Eggman deserves at least this one nice thing. So that was the DLC. Probably the hardest Sonic content I've ever played through. Dethroning probably Eggman Land from Sonic Unleashed, right? Having more playable characters was a definite improvement. I just wish I could have had more time as Amy, Knuckles, and Tails. Maybe they could have added some sort of boss fights tailored to their gameplay styles. That could have really capped off their sections nicely. But where this update lost me a bit was failing to balance challenge and fun. A lot of the things I had to do to beat the trials or the final boss, I don't think I can call fun. Like, the secret to beating the 3 Titans quickly is one combo. Punch, punch, stomp. Over and over again. I don't think that's very fun. No Sonic game has ever felt more methodical to me than this game did during these moments of extreme challenge. There's basically just one solution. And is it supposed to be fun finding that solution? Because all I found was frustration. And because of that, I just didn't get nearly as excited about these fights as I did other big fights in Sonic history. I do appreciate that it was an actual final fight this time, like that's an improvement, but I felt like it was missing something. The stakes were high and the ideas were good, but the fight being so unclear with what you needed to do to win left it feeling flat for me. As for any performance and graphic issues, it's a lot to ask a free DLC to fix any of that. Hopefully the next time we get a 3D Sonic game, they'll have the pop-in and tree textures figured out. But did it fix all the problems fans had with the base game? It's a mixed bag. I don't think I'll be hopping back into this DLC anytime soon. I'm gonna need a minute to heal from the ass whooping it gave me, but I think I should be back on my feet just in time for Sonic Superstars. But was the final Horizon update everything you were hoping it would be? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, ring a bell, and as always, have a good one.